still surviving. And I run Tiny Rebel Games, British studio, uh, based in Wales, and building Petaverse. Um, Nice to be here as always, and I can't wait for GamesBeat Summit. Not only because the weather is horrific in the UK and has been for as long as I can remember, but to see Dean, of course, and to hang out at a great conference.
Hey. Yay.
It'll be your new subtitle on LinkedIn, Susan. Susan Cummings, still here, still surviving.
Still here.
Hey, I'm Mark Delora. I'm also still here, still surviving. Longtime game industry technologist. Worked in policy in DC under President Obama for a few years, and then now I work kind of at the cross section of Games for Learning and Games for Learning. And it's nice to be here as always on a Friday. Nice to see your friendly faces this morning instead of just voices.
It's lovely to see you all as well. Yeah, Jamil had said, we were frozen for a moment, and now it's all done and working there. Loving live video. And Susan, of course, the weather's terrible here in the UK. What did you expect? It's what we are known for. That's right. I threw a little laugh in there, maybe a little fart noise, because it doesn't matter how old you get, farts are funny. All right. So it seems we have everything working here. And now I didn't have a chance to actually meet with my co-hosts here before we started this today. But look, when we're ready to talk about different parts of news, we need a little browser. I'll be able to switch over to a desktop browser. We have a nice scene that moves us over there. And then we can go back to full screen too, so we can bring up any data and things like that we want to talk about. So right now, it's just the four of us on here. Dean, why don't you, as always, kick us off? What is big in game news today?
Well, we had a story this morning about gaming M&A activity in Q1, another one of these reports that came out from Drakestar. And they noted that the M&A activity in Q1 outpaced all quarters of 2023. And so lots of deals are happening again. This is either a good or a bad thing. I guess, lots of companies might be up for sale for small price or for low prices, which is not a great thing. But there is some very big deals that, result in payouts. Those payouts make some people rich, and they go and start new games or new things, I think. So that's the idea, sort of the opposite of what happened with Embracer, I guess, right? Yeah, it's increased financial activity, I think, is a good thing for the game industry.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
More money coming is always a good thing.
It's hard to get consensus, is what I've noticed, is that every single person in the industry has a different perspective on where things are at right now, like in terms of investment money, in terms of whether it's getting better or getting worse, publishing money, M&A. Like, seriously, you ask 5 people, they'll give you a different take on it.
Yeah. I mean, the big deals of the quarter included CVC and Haveli Investments buying out Carlyle Group for control of Jagex for $1.1 billion. So that was the biggest. But Take-Two also bought Gearbox from Embracer for $460 million. And then Saber also got sold for $247 million, departing from Embracer Group and going to Beacon Interactive. So healthy spread of deals there. It's almost like an unraveling of Embracer that is fueling some of that M&A activity.
Yeah, I would say the refocusing of Embracer, right?
Yeah. And on the investment side, there was Disney's $1.5 billion investment into Epic Games, which accounted for 63% of all the value of private placements in the quarter. But there are still a lot of other private placements and investments in game companies happening. So that is good compared to the sort of drought we saw in 2023.
Yeah, that's all true. And Web3 gaming investments are picking up again on the back of the market being up in crypto.
Yeah.
So a lot more Web3 gaming announcements.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, that they have come back to life in terms of companies raising money for different things. Patriots division, $5 million, right? And just different partnerships that are happening between, Sui, the blockchains like Sui and Solana, all making news this week. Aether and Magic Eden teamed up on Web3 NFT gaming projects, where Aether is one of these GPUs as a service company. And then GFAL is a Spanish game company run by Manel Sort, and their Web3 game startup that raised $3.3 million from Supercell and Mitch Lasky. So those names are very interesting because you don't hear about them in the same breath when you talk about Web3.
I think Trip Hawkins is involved in that as well.
Yeah, he's the chief strategy officer, right? Yeah. So, and
I will speak up. I'm sorry, Jamil. Is that any better?
Where is
Yeah,
this?
she said it's slightly echoey.
All right, here we go. Let's see.
It might be the speaker. I do have a mic I can plug in, a separate mic that usually.
Yeah, you may be getting some feedback there.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know why my laptop just suddenly always knows what to do, whereas my desktop is just like very problematic.
Yeah, well, Dean, since you called in from a different device, I in real time was stretching you out and squeezing you into the little box I got you there. So very good.
There we go. I moved it closer, and that seems to have helped.
That's right. If we've learned anything from Chocolate Rain, it's move your mouth closer to the mic. My God, that is an old ass reference. That is, when all of our bases didn't belong to us and they belonged to someone else.
Right.
My God, I got a million of them.
Should we talk about what about this? I'm gonna be honest, it's not my sort of game, so I didn't know much about this. But this shooter where they started charging $250 and everyone's fleeing.
Yeah, Escape from Tarkov, right?
That's the one. Yeah, I'd never heard of this game, so I was completely ignorant of it.
It's the game that really set off the whole extraction shooter craze, right? Where you go in with your squad, you grab some loot, shoot everybody else trying to stop you, and then you get out, you extract, go to the helicopter and get away, right? So it's been very popular, and it did set off a lot of other things, from like shrapnel to all others, right? So it's a whole category. Call of Duty adopted this kind of extraction with the DMZ mode and that you had in Call of Duty Warzone. So it's been very influential. But yeah, they decided to have a major update embedded within the $250 update that you could buy, like a VIP update. And for some reason,
why not?
It's an awesome idea.
So and made it, and it's like pay to win now, isn't it? Like there were a bunch of perks that disproportionately helped people who were willing to spend $250 to play.
Yeah, and there was a huge backlash against them out on the internet, and they had to walk it back. They walked it back to, if you bought the previous $150 edition, then you could get access for 6 months for the $250 edition update, and then people were still not happy about that, and they had to walk that back as well. So I'm not sure how far walked back they are right now.
We're back in 2020 now. Apparently, they've walked so far.
Ooh, I got you really echoey now.
This is Battle State Games, by the way, the game developer. So,
you know what, Susan? Are you watching the live feed?
I am. Is that what's going on?
Yes. Mute your mute that tab, or mute the audio there.
Weirdly, you sound totally fine to me, Susan. Which of course makes it make way more sense.
I'm gonna put it in a drawer.
Oh wow,
I used
yeah.
to do on Twitter when I had to host and speak on Spaces. I would just throw it in a drawer because I needed to be there. But is that better?
Does anyone else hear Susan echoing, or no? Is that just
I
me?
don't hear that.
You don't hear it?
No.
Nope.
What is going on? Something's wrong in my.
I have the
No.
most amazing Dynabook laptop ever.
But I was gonna say, isn't this also the same? I was reading up on it because I'm like, how have I not actually even heard of this game? And I guess there was other controversy associated with the same team where there were no women in it. And someone on the team said basically women have no place in battle or something insane like that.
Oh, God.
Women don't belong in war. And then that was walked back by someone else in the team saying they don't speak for us. That's not true. It wasn't that. And I was like, what the hell is this landmine I've walked into?
Boy, that reminds me of the old Ubisoft stance about animating women, which was women are hard to animate, so we don't put them in our games.
So stupid.
Yeah.
All right. So Dave Christie just brought up a point here. He said, like, the thing is, by comparison, Star Citizen has been absolutely milking their fan base for years, and it's been absolutely fine because of the constant communication. And so, yes, they've been excellent communicating. But here's the question that I have for us. If you are a consumer, if you're a player, and you are willing to pay that money in and feel like you're getting value out, are you being milked for that money?
I guess it depends on the pay to win aspects of it.
That's different. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the problem. If it ruins your fun because other people are able to pay,
is it democratic milking or not? Right?
Yeah. And I mean, look, a lot of games end up that in the end. Like, look at Hearthstone. I used to love the hell out of Hearthstone, and now when you go back to it, the whole meta has changed, and there's kind of no way to quickly ramp up unless you just spend a bunch of money on it. And so, you could call that pay to win. That's ruined many a game for me. I mean, Magic the Gathering is the same thing. It's like you need a lot of stuff or items or whatever to be able to compete. So it's just a different flavor of paying to win.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
The bad thing for Escape from Tarkov is that they had a rival announce their extraction shooter, Gray Zone Warfare. And it looks pretty good, right? It's just made also by a very small team, they're capitalizing on.
I saw this,
the anger toward Battlestate games and Escape from Tarkov. So.
Yeah, here's my hot take, by the way, of recent. You noticed that almost without exception, all the good stuff, all the really successful stuff is coming from these little tiny teams on Steam. For all the VC money that poured into the space over the last few years, there's a lot more successes that look like three guys or women, made it in their spare time and then launched it on Steam. I just something weird, interesting
They're all
about
early
that.
access titles too.
Right?
Yeah.
Helldivers 2 and Pal World and what's the Manor one that was?
Oh yeah, Manor Lords.
Manor Lords is
And the one we talked about last week, the horror one that I don't get and I can't even remember the name of from week to week. That one.
Oh yeah, right.
That one. And I'm never gonna remember the name.
Yeah, but hey,
mental block.
But let's talk about, since you brought it up, let's talk about Manor Lords for a second. Seemingly out of left field, created by one person, everything in it. Right? Including the online components and everything else. This is a recurring theme that we've talked about in multiple boss rushes, right? Which is, these games are seemingly coming out of left field from the tiniest teams that are exploding and giving a run for AAA releases. Are
100%.
we going to see the bigger money start to chase that smaller, episodic, smaller team?
And can they? What do they really have to
I guess-
offer? I don't get the sense they want the VC money.
Yeah, there's that interesting part too, where it's like the money doesn't seem to matter here. It's like Helldivers 2 was in the works for 8 years, right? And they really sort of scraped and struggled. And Pal World was also the same way. They didn't have a lot of money, but they had a small team and they worked for years
Yeah.
their title.
Yeah, I don't know if you can build a business model on this because the
Mhm.
ones that we're looking at, are the top of the iceberg, and then there are 10,000 other
Gajillion
games.
underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's true.
Mhm.
That's
that's the
true.
tough
Mhm.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
So
risky.
these are the fortunate few, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is like, what would they gain for more money? Like, they're probably not gonna. They probably don't want to make it faster.
Mhm.
And as you get bigger, you lose certain things too in terms
And
of.
now they're successful, and everybody wants to give them money. But like the Pal World CEO said, we don't need no more money anymore.
Yeah.
we
That's a
got
good
too much
problem to
money.
have.
I'm happy to pick up the conversation. They
Yeah.
just putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's like film, right? Like, look how many of the best movies are in the shoestring budgets, and then the
Yeah.
big ones get their 40% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
still perplexed by the early access thing. I have to say, like seeing Banner Lords, I saw it, had this huge pop, and so many people purchased it, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, it's early access. Well, maybe I'll wait. I'm still like, I want to wait until the game's done, and then I'm going to try it. I'm like, I got enough games to play. I don't need to like
Yeah.
jump on there in an alpha state, or beta state. But
We
There are a
we
lot of
jumped on
yeah.
to Wasteland 3 this week, Lee and I. We were looking for a
Ah,
co-op game. I'd never played it. That's fun
mhm.
as hell. Have you guys
oh
played
yeah,
that?
Wasteland 3.
Love it. Love it. We are having so much fun playing that co-op.
Mhm. No, I just barely scratched the surface on that one, and yeah,
Yeah.
gives scratches your
Oh, yeah.
Fallout itch, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
scratching my XCOM itch because XCOM had the same style of gameplay, and I
Uh,
love that in XCOM. So it's scratching my XCOM itch, to be honest.
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, Fallout has been huge news, right? The show, Amazon said what it was 65 million people in a very short time.
Mhm.
I have watched the Fallout TV series, and I'm in episode 4, and I'm enjoying it. Right,
3
so
here.
I got
Yeah.
lots to go still.
Now there
Episode
was
4.
Mhm.
I'm on episode 3.
It's been out for at least 4 days, man. What are you doing with your life?
I did finish. I finished Shogun, so I had to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Oh,
watched like
okay.
3 movies on the plane when I went out to reboot in Dubrovnik, right? So
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
was in London for a couple days sightseeing, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll talk about reboot when you guys are ready to. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and jump right over to it? And then what we'll do is we'll jump over to the GamesBeat page and look at some of the big news that you and your team reported on, and we'll
Mhm.
tackle some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Reboot it's. I think it's become one of the biggest and best European game conferences now, and they had 2,700 people show, right? And so it's at a very nice, luxurious Sheraton resort in outside of Dubrovnik, and then the old town of Dubrovnik is quite a big sell for people who want to go there. It's the like the Game of Thrones city, where they filmed many episodes there, and Reboot itself is very developer oriented. I listened to an interesting talk from Anita Sarkeesian, who has basically quit what she was doing. But 12 years ago, she did the Tropes versus Women videos, and her talk was entitled "Does the games industry still hate women?" I just took a snapshot of the title and then posted it on Facebook. And then Chris Heatherly starts a long conversation
Of course he did.
on Facebook, pre-criticizing what's wrong with this speech. And I'm going like, wait a minute, Chris, all I did was take the title screen here, but it's a very triggering title, I think.
Yeah.
Game
Sure.
industry still hate women, and Anita went through all of the sort of past examples that they had raised about what games were like 12 years ago, and she actually said that there's been a ton of progress. Like there aren't as many things to complain about sexist things in games, which at the time she pointed out 12 years ago, people didn't realize that they were such heavy tropes, right? So like the notion that you're your wife gets killed, you want revenge, she's down in hell, and you have to bring her soul out of hell. Like, just like, you wouldn't think that is like the subject matter for a ton of games, but actually she pointed out that there's a ton of games that have this theme. and, you know, and, and such and such. Like, there's like strategic butt coverings for men in games, but the women in games, from the third person view, are always, great butts, right? Scanty clothing, right? So yeah, she had some very sharp criticisms, and she didn't get into. She felt like the efforts made to improve games and to diversify the industry have helped, and she said we won, but she actually didn't get into all of the sweet baby stuff, which is triggering Gamergate 2 as we speak. So I think there's definitely different opinions people can have on the subject of whether the game industry is better.
Sure. I mean, we can always do better. We can always be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think, part of the maturation of the industry that it needs to go through, right? You're not developing games in an echo chamber for you and your friends anymore. You're developing this art for a massive audience, and it is important to see ourselves reflected in it. Here's the thing, that's that old saying, right? It's not like pie. Right? Like, if you take a slice, there's not going to be enough left for you. No, it's not like pie. It's limitless. So for whatever your
make bigger pie.
Right. Yeah. But it's limitless pie. You take a piece out, and it just shows back up again, right? It's now I just want pie.
I think they should be free. People should be free to make games like that if they want to target a subgroup of the game industry. Right.
We had a great line
market.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dean. Before you, the thing is that we shouldn't be chastising artists for creating art that doesn't speak to you. It doesn't speak to you. Great. Go find one of the hundreds of thousands of other developers that's making stuff that you want to go play. Right? It's not a finite amount of content, art, and engagement that exists.
I think the big, as the female in the room, I think that the biggest change.
My apologies.
No. What I was going to say, actually, quite the contrary, is that I think the biggest thing that has changed over the years since I got involved in the industry is that there are more good men who are helping. And I said this at the AWS event at GDC. It's an everyone effort. My partner as well. Like, there are guys out there that can't even imagine a world where it matters whether you're a man or a woman. Like, what's the freaking difference? And we need more of that. Where it's like that's what's improving and that's what's changed, and that's what you didn't see 5 years ago, where guys insisting that women have a seat at the table.
I'm really thankful for all the work that Anita did, and she really took lots of arrows for lots of years to help make this industry a better place. And I do find myself wondering, in 10 years, what are the practices that we're doing today that we'll think back on as being similarly terrible? Things that we are blind to, somebody will point out to us in 10 years from now. We'll be like, oh, oops.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought one of the interesting lines that Anita pulled out was something from a feminist writer, Laurie Penny, and Anita was talking about the sort of the privileged men who are offended that games are about other people than them now. Like, they're not the main characters all the time anymore, and for them this is an offense, right? And then she said, Laurie Penny said, what we have right now isn't equality for women. It's not like equality, but it's still enough to enrage the old guard, because when you've been used to privilege, equality sounds like prejudice against you. So
that's a great quote.
Great quote.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
There are a lot of good things in the talk. I did a post that actually was, every word of the speech. It was interesting.
Yeah,
You transcribed
we're
it
gonna
by
go
hand?
through the front page of the site in a minute. Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking Dean if he transcribed it by hand on the way home.
Yeah, it's transcribed.
Or did you use like
no, I didn't
Anthropic
do that.
Claude?
I have a human transcriber that.
Okay. Oh, great.
And so AI transcribing isn't
That's what I
quite
was
there yet.
Yeah, that's with all AI things. It'll get you 90% right, and the 10% you don't pay attention to will be completely wrong, and you'll get beat up for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of which, I mean, it's not for games, but did you see the article that came out? I think it was it ours or that talked about that short Airhead that was made by the Sora team, and it was supposed to be in this entirely AI created short film. And then the director of the project, I think the name of the team was Sky Kids, is like, oh no, like we had to do so much post processing and cleaning stuff up and upscaling thing. Like, no, this wasn't just generated by typing in a few prompts and out popped this movie. But that's the way everybody reported on it. And so it's one of these things where, it still feels like VR did in the early 90s, right? It's going to do all of this stuff. And it's like, well, when you kind of, yes, it's going to be amazing. But right now it kind of does this. Same thing with the web in 94, same thing, right? So yes, these AI tools are amazing and they're going to help to accelerate the things that we do, but let's not overshoot or overstate what its capabilities are and kill innovation early on, right?
It gets us so much investment. Come on.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. About what it's going to take.
I just listened to a 30-minute podcast from Sal Khan talking about how they're using AI to, build Con Miko, and that boy, I think he could raise money from a rock. He's so compelling as a speaker. I'm like, that's a skill.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, why don't we go ahead and pop over and take a look at your stories there, Dean?
Yeah, well, there's one that I did not expect to trigger a lot of reaction, but the most popular thing I did this week was tweet about something that the AMD chief financial officer said in the earnings call. And you got like 300,000 tweets. Sadly, not as many people actually read the story that I was linking to. but they got the headline. So Gene Hu, the CFO of AMD, was talking about their game business, right? And so like their game business consists of like, chips for graphics cards, right? But also the primary chips for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, right? And S. And she said gaming demand is down a lot. And so it was down 48% in Q1 compared to a year ago, right? And so that means all those categories that I mentioned there are down quite significantly. She said they're also going to be down in Q2. And then she said the second half is going to be worse. Usually, right, in any kind of like, scenario of a typical year, the second half is better, right? And this, especially Q4 is going to be better. So like what's going on? Well, essentially we have consoles, I think, that are kind of dying right now. They're in their fifth year, right? And that is like back to the old cycle of game consoles where, every 5 years or so you have a downturn because everybody stops buying the consoles because they're so old. And then it becomes a time to launch a brand new console, right? And I think the thing that's going to throw some of these companies like say Microsoft for a loop is that they based on the documents that leaked from them, they were planning on an 8-year cycle for the Xbox Series X and S, right? And also I don't know, like, but Sony had a great run with PlayStation 4. It was a 10-year beast, right? And so like I don't know what's new or different here. And I'm just sort of thrown for a loop that she would be so pessimistic about the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, she is. I would be curious to compare that against a similar point in time on the previous cycle. There are a couple other things about what you said. It occurs to me she needs to be really conservative doing financial projection.
Right.
But is it similar to before? And then also that her projections, like the money that AMD makes, are really far on the front end of the cycle because they're manufacturing their processors. So you have to think like what she's talking about is going to reflect into the 6th year.
Yeah, she's taking orders now for the fall, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So does that track? It does. I mean, my gut, it tells me that I'm with you. It feels like everything's a little bit slow on consoles right now, and more than I would expect. But I don't know why that is.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, say, folks like, when you think of the whole game industry, Newzoo is expecting this year to be a recovery year, to actually grow, right, by a small number of percent. And so I guess that tells you that, say, PC and mobile are really the things that are going to bring the game industry to growth this year if the consoles themselves are just so weak.
Well, do you also think that, I mean, there's a few things happening, right? There's a bit of an Osborne effect going on, right? With Sarah Bond saying, oh, we're working on this next generation, massive, step. Hey, it's going to be such a huge generational leap over we have. Okay, well, that's a bit of that Osborne effect of, well, don't buy anything now, just wait.
Ozzy Osbourne? What
No, the Osborne. I'm sorry.
This
is the suffering that you have to put up with when you talk about somebody who does game and computer industry history. The Osborne effect was when the Osborne company released the Osborne 1 back in the day, wildly popular luggable computer, and then they got up and said, we're working on the next one, but it's not going to be out for another 2 years, but it's going to do all this stuff. And everyone went, great, we'll just wait. And that caused the company to collapse, right? So that is the Osborne effect. There you go. There you go, kids. So we have a little bit of that, right? That wait and see approach. We also have these other investments that are happening in things like cloud streaming of games and longer form games. So now we have more outlets for that diversion. So if you're kind of being told to wait and see, Sony went ahead and released that streaming handheld. So there's a lot of this experimentation there, and I don't know. I'm not, I don't have any, information from those companies, but it feels outside looking in that all of those things are kind of playing into the, hey, I have enough stuff to do for a while. I can wait to see what the next generation is going to look like, right?
Yeah. And, Switch 2, right? Everybody's been talking about the rumors that Switch 2 is coming. Everybody now believes that it's not till 2025, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely a reason for the console makers to just look at the market and decide, how soon do we have to get our machines out? Because they don't want this, rapid decline that's going to, kill off a lot of their developers, right? They want to have something like a smooth transition. But yeah, that's coming. I think the thing that everybody expects this year for the PS5 is, a pro version, right? And whether that makes it into this year or not is, they haven't announced anything. So, but people believe they know what's in there based on leaks. Microsoft less so, interesting question. Matt Piscatella did comment on this thing that I wrote, and he said the video game console hardware market is still cyclical, and we are in a very late stage of life for Switch, while both PS5 and Xbox are post their cyclical peaks, and the Q1 declines are sharper than I expected, but not alarmingly so. Shrug. Don't panic, everybody, right? But it is a little disturbing.
Know where your towel is.
Yeah, it is disturbing given how bad a year we had, like say last year. It's a little disturbing to hear that this year is going to be weaker, right? So
Yeah, but didn't we say we've heard, oh, we had such a tremendous amount of content that came out last year. We can't expect it. And it's like banger after banger just kept releasing. Oh, it's going to continue to be bad. Somehow these games still keep coming out. Somehow people still spend more money doing it. So
mhm.
I take all
Yeah.
of that with a little bit of a little grain of salt.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I wasn't necessarily like, AMD usually doesn't like to say pre-announce things for their customers. And so they're usually not very communicative about the state of demand for the consoles, right? But when it's materially affecting their results, like 48% down in one quarter, right? They have to speak up and explain it a bit more. So it's nice that there's different parts of the industry that give us tea leaves for the whole game industry, right?
Sure. Yep.
Let's see, Susan, were there some things about Web3 announcements lately that made you feel like it's kind of coming back in some way, or it's getting results?
Certainly I've seen some small investments lately. It doesn't seem like we're seeing like the huge ones we saw 2 years ago. Grants are becoming a thing again with a lot of the blockchains. It seems like a number of blockchains want to start grabbing game content. So starting
like
to see
Saga and Sui, right?
Sui, Arbitrum, Aptos, Tezos. There's a lot of funding out there, like token treasuries, crazy amounts of money out there that I guess they have to figure out what they're going to do with, right? So that I'm starting to, and tokens, are starting to make it come back for better or for worse.
Yeah. Ubisoft, I did an interview with Ubisoft way back at GDC.
They're coming back, right? They're back into it.
I
like
finally
they were
ran the interview, and Nicholas Pouard, he said that their initial effort with Ghost Recon was simply layering like a tech layer on top of an existing game, right? And that was their experiment at the time, which everybody criticized, and it caused all the AAA companies to pause because of the backlash. And they said now, like, we've been investing in this still, and they invested in a fair amount of Web3 startups, and they say they're shipping that at least a couple of games this year that are more fully sort of Web3 integrated than what they had initially just started with. So brand new games that will have Web3 elements to them.
Well, lots of money got invested, so it will be interesting to see if, some things start to come of it.
Do you know what I love about this new format? Is I get to look over at Mark's thumbnail and see all the body language.
Mark's rolling his eyes this whole time.
I know, totally.
I'm just imagining like if somebody said like a random word, and for 5 years we've been investing into it, and why isn't anybody using the cantaloupe technology in our new game? And man, it's amazing. I really want to invest in it. Cantaloupes. Jeez, those cantaloupes have gone away. Oh, wait, they're coming back. Cantaloupes are coming back. Woo! I'm like, I don't care about cantaloupes. Like, what's your game do?
Well, and I think that's the thing is, I have a on again, off again love affair with that aspect of where a future tech for very specific reasons. But until it's a good game, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, I think you've been really clever in your business model to like you're making some functionality, right? You're making something that could be completely independent of Web3.
It doesn't it's completely optional. And so that's when it becomes like, do I use AWS or do I use Google Cloud? That's when it becomes interesting, It should be nothing more than a database. And no one gives a shit what database other than Chris. No one cares what database.
No, for me, from a game perspective, I mean, every time I hear that blockchain, I'm like, yeah, DynamoDB Games. It's like, no, it's a database, And Mark, if you have to pick the perfect name, it's Brondo.
Brondo.
I don't know if you remember that from Idiocracy. Brondo, it's what plants crave. It's what plants crave.
That's a great
Why don't you use water instead? You mean like from the toilet?
Awesome.
No, but I mean,
But when you think about it that way, when you say it's just a database, and in some cases it's a database that has IPFS, it's just a database. It's not so controversial anymore, is it?
Mhm.
It's just a game. And if
Right.
Epic put out a game and let you trade your assets with other people, it wouldn't bother anybody if you
No.
didn't call it blockchain, right? And we did that in MMOs. People in the EverQuest 1 days, people traded their characters.
Yeah.
So
we
it's
still
not
do
that
it today.
crazy. It's just
And
yeah.
we still do it today. There was back
It's
at
an
the
easier way of
height,
doing it.
yeah, that back at the height of of COVID and Animal Crossing. One of my daughters, who is a huge Animal Crossing player, she found this website where all these people were doing and orchestrating trades, and they had this massive database of all these different things that you could get, and then people would exchange stuff, and they would go into each other's islands and do these transactions, and you're like, "Yep,
There you go.
okay, we can do it."
Well, another example is Roblox, is Pet Simulator and Adopt Me. And my kid's back into it again lately. And I was watching him the other day, and I'm like, what's the gameplay there in Pet Simulator X? Because I haven't played it. And he's just like, oh, we're just trading. And it was just a throng of a bunch of kids on top of each other. I couldn't even see what was happening. Trading. I'm like, where's the gameplay? There's no gameplay. You're just trading. Like, the gameplay is collect boxes to trade. It's like, this is all, like, there's not a big difference between what these kids are doing and DJs.
Susan, did you just define a whole new genre of games called hoarding games? Is that what we're doing now?
The generation of hoarders, my son being one of them. Yeah, it's
like the unpacking game.
Yeah, this defined one of our things. I was like, God, I've had my fingers in my ears about this. And so we built a web platform for our stuff so you could just trade, because that's all they want to do is trade.
Yeah, I think for me that's the packing game, Dean, because I hoard so much stuff. I need to fit it in those little Home Depot crates. What can I stuff in there?
That's all Neopets was back in the day. I didn't play Neopets, but all I keep hearing from people who played Neopets was that you just went on the website and you just hit refresh over and over and over again to get the rare thing that was there that day.
Oh God!
I'm like, God, that's fun.
That's like Ian Bogus
Like
cookie clicker and cow clicker.
Cow clicker. Yeah, totally.
By the way, if you now go to GamesBeat's site, you will see the agenda for GamesBeat Summit 2024.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here.
I'm going to click it over and over.
And meanwhile, speaking of things that Mark wishes were dead but are still alive. So yesterday, the Yuga Labs people had a town hall in the metaverse, and they said they were going to use technology M² from Improbable.
Wow.
After sort
Weren't
of
they already using Improbable?
They were using Improbable, and then they decided to open up to more companies that would be their tech providers. And now they're saying again, we're doubling down on Improbable for technology that can get, tens of thousands of players into the same experience. Like, say a concert. They've done this for sports events, and now they're also doing it for, metaverses. I talked to Herman Narla, the CEO of Improbable, yesterday, and he did say that the game industry still rejects the idea of the metaverse, but they are trying to build these experiences, and so they're not the metaverse word for sure. They're calling them games instead of metaverses, but they're trying to tap this technology. And Yuga Labs, they're sort of more forward thinking in this respect. A Web3 company. They're the Bored Ape and Mutant Ape company, and they've been running these experiments called Other Side, where they get 20,000 people into the same crazy little game space, right? And they have 3D audio that is fully something that you can hear every person in the whole experience, or you can just go up and have a close conversation with one person, and that's pretty cool technology. And the sort of the fidelity of what they can do with the graphics is pretty cool. And then the thing that Herman said that they went away from, which they basically quit, was MMOs, where you have collision between people, where one person can't step through another person, but this transparency of the avatar is something that is working very well with the new technology. And they say that projects that they can get done within a few months are much more suitable for this technology. Say like a concert type thing, and held as events are more interesting to them now than working for 5 years on an MMO and then seeing if anybody likes it, right? Because they did two big projects like this and they basically failed, right? So it's an interesting kind of pivot for them, but maybe a validation to Improbable that somebody's believing in their M-squared technology now.
Yeah, and it's a very cool tech stack, what they built. So interesting too.
Yeah, and and maybe that's where Improbable will finally find their product market fit, right? Is as a tech company enabling stuff. Because
Do you think that's probable?
No, I'm pretty skeptical, to be honest. But
hey, Mark, you can't hear that.
Mark's rolling his eyes again.
You can't hear that sound effect. Hopefully, other people did. But
should we, before we run out of time, should we talk about the Unity announcement? They have a new CEO.
yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of that? I don't
know.
Yeah,
Matthew Bromberg, the former COO of Zynga, is now the CEO of Unity. So that was interesting news this week. And what happened to Don Riccadello? Well, he tried to do the big price increase last fall, and everybody hated it, and then he resigned. Now they got some,
and we made that happen. I think with our harassing 10,000 person Twitter space. I absolutely take credit for that. Going on my gravestone.
I always thought John was hired on to take Unity public, and he did that and grew the company, quite a long ways. So props to him for that.
Yeah. I think from a financial point of view, he was good for the company, but there are things like this that maybe, the financial people are not always right.
I was going to say, and I never push back on anything you say, Mark, but I would push back here and say, I don't think they ever should have gone public. I don't know that he gets kudos for that. I think that's what has destroyed them. I don't think that, the engine business is tough. And I don't think it supports a company the size of what he turned Unity into. And
I'm not sure the company would have survived without the infusion of cash they got from going public, though.
They should have just got acquired, though. Microsoft could use them. Microsoft doesn't have an engine,
Yeah. Then it would have been Xbox only, and then nobody would have used it.
And I think, it is really, it's an interesting place because, Unity was grown as the indie engine, right? It was independents got in who nobody had any money, but we kind of grew up together. And so you have a culture that's built around the history of the industry, the mythos of it and all that stuff. And so when you look at very large company acquisition of it, it's like, oh, well, you've abandoned that mission. I'm out. Right. And so when I think it, I loved the approach that they did, right? Which was we built a game, we built tools for it. The game was terrible. The tools were great. So we think other people that are in the same boat as we are, we're going to go ahead and do this, right?
Well, to unnecessarily tout our game conference again, GameSpeed Summit, we'll have two sets of interesting speakers. One is folks who are talking about unionization in games. So that's one.
Who is that?
Jake Avella from the IGDA, the executive director, and then Zico. Well, I forget his last name, but he's one of the representatives from SAG-AFTRA's interactive committee. So,
well, see, Dean, you're not looking at the live feed, but I have your GameSpeed Summit webpage up that everybody is looking at here, and then, so we can.
Well, the other person is from Godot,
Susan Cummings.
I'm talking there.
W4 Games managing director, and he's going to be talking about open source game engines. So
very cool.
Interesting.
That's right, Open 3D Engine. There you go.
That's Pablo's dilemma.
Tipatat and I are going to be talking about AR, which I'm very
That's
excited
right.
about that you let us
That's
do
right.
that, because I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
that-
Well, listen, gang, I
It'll be fun.
hate that I'm going to have to cut this off on time because
Yeah.
we have a very special event over here in our
But you gotta-
household. My son is going to his senior prom.
Oh.
This is our youngest, and so this is marking end of an era, right, for
That's amazing.
him,
Wow.
for all of us and everything. And so we're also going downtown to DC to take pictures of them all
Aw.
down, and
Awesome.
all those monuments. So I'm gonna have to.
But you gotta tell us what
Stop.
you're playing.
What's that? Yeah.
Gotta-
And before we do that, what are you playing? Dean.
I played a whole lot of nothing lately because I was traveling.
Yeah.
I have on the plane. I was playing a mobile game called Bomb, which is a ripoff of Missile Command. So
It was called what again?
Bomb.
Bomb. Okay.
Been out for years. Yeah.
Susan.
I said I'm playing Wasteland 3 right now with Lee.
Nice.
Co-op.
Very nice.
I'm still farting around with Dave the Diver, but I'm more playing around with the space of language learning games right now. So Shashingo, lots of Duolingo, this and that. Downtown.
Awesome. I love Duolingo.
Very
Awesome.
cool. Well, listen, in the interest of May the 4th, our biggest holiday, coming up tomorrow,
Oh, yeah.
they're having a sale on all these Star Wars games on Steam. And so I'm going back and actually playing through Jedi Survivor. Oh,
Nice. Of course you are.
gosh, it's so good. It is so
Awesome.
good. I know, people are like, oh, frame rate. Pfft, go ahead and turn on VSync and enjoy the incredible set pieces in the game there. It's really just a
I should do
fantastic
that.
game. And then I'm also playing more Power Wash Simulator,
Oh, nice.
which is so good on Steam
Ed
Deck.
loves that.
Yeah.
I can't
It's-
get my head around that being a game,
No,
but
it is a game if you kind of figure out your system for attacking the different areas, and then making sure that the one little piece of dirt that's like up in the corner of the second floor of this building isn't escaping your notice. And so yeah,
Totally
there are
gotta go try
times
this
I was like,
more.
oh, I was playing the SpongeBob add-on pack. So you go around Bikini Bottom, and the
That's
best one
Oh my
was
God.
you had to clean the invisible boatmobile. So as you're wiping it down, it's just there's nothing there. It's
Oh,
so
that's
good.
Cool. Oh, I've been
I
meaning
do
to
have,
play
by the way, I do have 3 interesting games on my machine right now.
Right, let's go.
Tales of Kenzera Zao, which is a platformer game from very interesting studio set in it's set in Africa, and very cool game. Homeworld 3 is on there.
Mhm.
I got a preview for that, and then the Political Machine 2024.
Oh, woohoo!
Oh,
Right
my
about
goodness.
The
I didn't think
campaign
you
for
liked
it.
horror games, Dean. What are you talking
Survival horror.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on this grand experiment. I think that it worked well enough that we're going to probably continue doing it this way. Plus,
wait,
it
this
gives
was
us
great.
stuff that we can
Nice.
go
Might
ahead
move
and
this.
put up
Yeah.
on other platforms. I'm also going to be looking into where we're going to be streaming this outside of just LinkedIn so we can bring in broader audience and have more interaction discussion. But I want to thank my co-hosts as always, Dean Takahashi, Susan Gummings, Mark Delora. Yay! Good job today.
Great. Thanks for setting
Good.
this up, Chris.
Of
Love the
course,
Yeah,
of course,
thanks,
it's my
Chris. Thank
pleasure.
you.
And again, I'm Chris Felicinos, and thank you all for joining us on this
good
week's
weekend.
Boss Rush. And we'll see you. Next week. We have to figure that out because, as I mentioned, one video is graduating high school in a prom. My other one is graduating from college, and so we'll be going down to Mufrat. Big month.
Boss
For
Rush on
the
the road.
Melosinos family here.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out, though.
Yeah, we'll figure
All right,
it
you all have a great rest of your
Awesome.
day, a great
Nice
weekend. Thank you
weekend.
so much for joining us today.
out. See y'all.
Thanks.